What is going on? GeoFux here, Psych Perspectives, and it's an ongoing battle for human rights, basic human rights, freedoms, and we're literally at the end of February going into March. We haven't even gotten through the first 100 days of Donald J. Trump and J.D. Vance administration. We haven't even gotten through the first quarter of the year. And this is every day you're either learning about how you're losing rights or another marginalized group is losing rights. And it's just ongoing. What I will say before I get into this video topic is make sure that you are practicing some form of self-care. Hopefully, it's a more positive, healthy option for self care, but nonetheless, make sure you take time to love on yourself, care for yourself, be around people that love and support you and care about you. Spend time in nature, read a book, go to a movie, do something for you. And also take moments of time to take a break from social media, from looking at the news, from scrolling, because let's be real, constantly being bombarded with that type of negative information 24/7 is also not good for our psyche and well being. And yet, you still need to be aware of what's going on, but you also need to be able to prioritize your mental health, your physical health, your well being. So, if you need to take a few days, a few weeks, a few months, do what you need to do. Sending everybody love and positive energy. Now we're about to get into the topic of this video. So, you know what? I'm just gonna make sure you're drinking enough water too. And give me a swig of water before we even get into this. So, Iowa's governor signs a bill removing gender identity protections from the state's civil rights code. Now, again, it's been an ongoing attack against transgender people, intersex people, expansive people, and also an ongoing attack against the LGBTQIA plus community, as well as other marginalized identities. And again, a lot of people thought this was fake, this wasn't going to happen, and or did not care about transgender people. It just needs to be said. So it's for this was released 4:29 p.m. off of AP News, the Associated Press, which is also the AP or Associated Press. They've been pretty much banned from attending any of the White House press conferences. So, like, we're also seeing the ongoing censorship of media. Again, we're constantly seeing constitutional rights be disregarded completely. First Amendment right, freedom of speech, freedom of press. But to stay on topic, in Des Moines, Iowa, Iowa became the first U.S. state to remove gender identity protections from its civil rights code today, Friday, February 28th, when Governor Kim Reynolds signed into law a bill that opponents say will expose transgender people and other Iowans to discrimination in all aspects of daily life. The new law, which goes into effect July 1st, now notice, this doesn't go into effect until July 1st, 2025. But as we've seen, there will be different companies, businesses, institutions, healthcare systems, employers, etc., who will prematurely start discriminating and creating policies discriminating against transgender people well before the actual law goes into effect. We will likely see that, and that is very unfortunate. Again, it doesn't go into effect until July 1st. Follows several years of actions from Reynolds and Iowa Republicans to restrict transgender students' use of such spaces as bathrooms and locker rooms and their participation on sports teams in an effort to protect people assigned female at birth. Republicans say those policies cannot coexist with a civil rights code that includes gender identity protections. And yet, at the same time, they're allowing a rapist, misogynist influencer, okay, the Tate brothers, who are literally facing human trafficking charges in Romania, uh, to come back to the USA. But yet they're so worried about people assigned female at birth. Your elected president literally has been not only accused, but he's been found guilty of sexual assault, sexual abuse, sexual harassment. He literally is a convicted felon currently. But again, you're worried about protecting people assigned female at birth. Um, the law passed quickly in Iowa after first being introduced last week. It also creates explicit legal definitions of female and male based on their reproductive organs at birth, rejecting the idea that a person can transition to another gender. Again, this also is problematic for intersex people because, again, people are literally born intersex. And if we're going to go off of reproductive organs at birth, well, if a person is born with both genitalia, exactly what are we going to do there? Because there are quite a bit of folks that are actually intersex. So you're also basically stating that intersex people don't exist. You're also stating that trans people don't exist. And the only people that are allowed to have rights and exist freely as themselves are cisgendered people. Okay. Uh, Reynolds proposed a similar bill last year, but it didn't make it to a vote of the full House or Senate. Reynolds posted a video on social media explaining her signature on the bill and acknowledging that it was a sensitive issue for some. For some, again, they don't care about trans people, they don't care about intersex people, and quite frankly, they don't care about protecting people assigned female at birth. Because if that's the case, you're harming some trans men, right? Just saying. It's common. This is what the governor, Kim Reynolds of Iowa, said. Quote, it's common sense to acknowledge the obvious biological differences between men and women. In fact, it's necessary to secure genuine equal protection for women and girls, she said, adding that the previous civil rights code blurred the biological line between the sexes. Again, I'm going to say a few things that may, rub people the wrong way, but number one, why do we keep acting like women cannot defend and protect themselves? Why do we keep acting like they are some infant child that can't do anything for themselves? Number two, you're supposedly trying to protect them, but yet to this very day, 96% of all violent crimes are still committed by cisgendered males. Yet, what are you doing to protect them from the people that are actually harming them? Cisgendered males. Nothing. Um, Meanwhile, you're appointing numerous cis males who have sexually assaulted and abused people to elected office to Trump's cabinet, including our acting U.S. Attorney General. Again, President Donald Trump signed an executive order on his first day in office to formalize a definition of the two sexes at the federal level. And executive orders are not laws either. Just want to throw that in there. Leading several Republican led legislatures to push for laws defining male and female. Trump posted in support of the Iowa bill on his Truth Social platform Thursday after it got final approval from the Iowa House and Senate. 5 House Republicans joined all Democrats in the House and Senate in voting against the bill. I honestly want to give commendment to the 5 House Republicans who joined the Democrats in Iowa and their Iowa State House, Iowa State Senate in voting against the bill. Because again, it's going to take allyship, it's going to take people working together to fight against transphobia and other issues plaguing our society and country currently. Iowa State Rep. Amy Wichtendahl was the final Democrat, and I apologize if I am mispronouncing Representative Amy Wichtendahl or Wichtendahl's name. I apologize. Was the final Democrat to speak before the vote in Iowa, wiping away tears as she offered her personal story as a transgender woman, saying, quote, "I transitioned to save my life." Quote, "The purpose of the bill and the purpose of every anti-trans bill is to further erase us from public life and to stigmatize our existence." Wichtenthal said, and quote, "The sum total of every anti-trans and anti-LGBTQ bill is to make our existence illegal." And that's exactly what it is. They don't want you to exist. They don't want you to have rights. They don't want you to receive any type of support. They basically want you to be dead. And that's the ongoing message that many people in the trans community and intersex community are constantly receiving. And it's just an ongoing slot of, hatred towards less than 1% of the population. I mean, my goodness. And then also, you're basically scapegoating a population of less than 1%, right? Like it's about 1 to 1.6%, really, of the population. You're scapegoating the trans community, the intersex community, the LGBTQIA plus community for all of the problems that are going on in the USA. And trans people have nothing to do with you not being able to afford eggs, groceries. In fact, trans people are not the ones laying you off work, right? Trans people aren't the ones taking away your health care. Okay? Those are actually typically cisgendered white men. But okay, hundreds of LGBTQ plus advocates streamed into the Capitol Rotunda on Thursday, which was February 27, waving signs reading, quote, "Trans rights are human rights," and chanting slogans including, quote, "No hate in our state." There was heavy police presence with state troopers stationed around the rotunda. The few protesters who lingered for final passage of the bill were emotional. Not every state includes gender identity in their civil rights code, but Iowa is now the first in the U.S. to remove non discrimination protections based on gender identity, said Logan Casey, Director of Policy Research at the Movement Advancement Project, an LGBTQ plus rights think tank. Sexual orientation and gender identity were not originally included in the state's Civil Rights Act of 1965. They were added by the Democratic controlled legislature in 2007. So you got to ask yourself, why was it okay for there to be an inclusion of sexual orientation and gender 18 years ago, but then 18 years later, there's a problem? It's like, again, we are digressing, not progressing. We're going backwards, as far as I'm concerned, in this country. Um, and mind you, they were added again in Iowa at the state level by the Democratic controlled legislature of 2007, also with the support of about a dozen Republican across the two chambers. The House Republican moving the bill Thursday, Representative Stephen Holt, said that if the legislator can add protections, it can remove them. As of July 1st, 2025, Iowa civil rights laws will protect against discrimination based on race, color, creed, sex, sexual orientation, religion, national origin, and disability status. Now, remember, the House Republican state rep, Stephen Holt, literally said if legislations can add protections, it can remove them. So, who's to say that sexual orientation won't be removed next? Race, color, sex, creed, disability status, national origin. They can remove those statuses too, according to Representative Steve Holt. So I'm just saying, and again, the fact that you have queer people, LGB people who are cisgendered, who are okay with throwing transgender people under the bus when transgender people are the very reason why the queer community, the LGBTQIA plus community, has the rights that they do today. Trans people are the very reasons why you have pride. Iowa's Supreme Court has expressly rejected the argument that discrimination based on sex includes discrimination based on gender identity. Advocacy groups promise to defend transgender rights, which may lead them to court. Keenan Crow, Director of Policy and Advocacy for LGBTQ plus advocacy group One Iowa, said the organization is still analyzing the text of the bill and that its vagueness makes it hard to determine where the enforcement is going to come from. We will pursue legal options available to us, Crow said. Information will be in the description box below. Again, this is an ongoing attack against the transgender, intersex, and gender expansive community. And again, a lot of us have been putting the red flags up, sounding the alarms for years. And nobody cared. Nobody thought it would happen. Nobody took it serious. I'm not going to say nobody, but a lot of people seem to not care, seem to not take it serious. And now here we are in 2025, and transgender people, intersex people, are literally losing their rights, freedoms, and safety. And again, we told y'all what was likely going to happen for years. And again, some people thought it was a joke. And again, at some point, you have to start caring about others. And privileged cisgender people and especially in the LGBTQ plus community, in the queer community, privileged cis males really need to start looking at the big picture. Because I am so sick and tired of hearing y'all talk about how y'all are oppressed. Nobody's banning you from getting health care. Nobody's banning you from going to the bathroom. Nobody's keeping you from getting a job. Wait, the person that's actually keeping you from getting a job is a cis male, a white cis male, who's typically cis het at that. So it's just odd. You're oppressed, but yet who's taking your rights away? Who's denying you of life, liberty, in the pursuit of happiness? So again, we've been telling y'all, everybody, oh, it's not that big of a deal. It's not that big of a deal when you're not the one being abused. You're not the one being persecuted. You're not the one losing your rights and freedoms. So it's very easy for a cis male to tell somebody that is a woman, to tell somebody that is intersex, somebody that's trans, that is not that big of a deal because you're not the one losing your rights, are you? Again, I said this in other videos, to my trans people, to my intersex people, I'm gonna keep saying is you need to stop hanging around cis people who do not respect you, who do not care about you, who do not support you, who do not advocate for you, because they are not your friend, they're not your family, they're not your romantic partner. They don't give a fuck about you outside of having sex with you the vast majority of the time. I'm just keeping it real. This is not the time to be sitting up wasting time, money, resources, and energy on cis people who cannot support you in your well being. End of discussion. You do not have the time for that. We are literally living in the very stages of a genocide against transgender intersex people. So, like I said, this is not the time to be sitting up being around people who tolerate you, yet can't celebrate you, can't love you out loud, can't support you publicly. No, you need to get rid of those people. You deserve better. Again, sending love and support and positive energy to transgender people across the country, across the globe, and to intersex people across the country and across the globe. I will say this: a law, a legislation, an executive order, it's not going to stop me from being who I am. It's not going to stop intersex and trans people from existing and living. We've been here and we're going to continue to be here. And it's really ridiculous how you're focusing on a small percentage of the population and basically trying to make it seem like we're the ones that's raping and molesting and physically abusing women and girls when it's typically cisgendered males. If you want to write a legislation, how come we don't have a legislation to keep that group out that's actually causing the harm? Right, right. The double standards and the hypocrisy. Again, your president is a sexual predator, but you're so concerned about women and girls. What about the trans women? What about the trans girls? What about the intersex girls? They don't matter? Exactly. Anyways, additional information is in the description box below. Y'all better get real. Y'all better get prepared and stop thinking everything is a joke.